So, what does this mean? When we think about improving family engagement, we have to go beyond how we improve our family events and newsletters. Instead, we need to put our time and energy into strategies that help staff get to know families so that we can build trusting relationships between families and teachers. So, how do we do it? Well, from a recent presentation from Carnegie and Harvard, we really resonated with this takeaway. What we do is we actually sit down and talk to families, making the time to cultivate those relationships, get to know the families, because in getting to know the families, we understand the unique needs that the child may have, and that will really help that student if we have that relationship with the parent. Figure out how every school staff can be paired with students so that every student is covered. So many lessons have been learned from the previous school year and the spring before. As we went into COVID, there were so many children that were lost in our education system. And had we had those relationships in place with parents, it would have been much easier to connect. That trust would be there, and we wouldn't have been scrambling to find the students. We would have had that connection already. So maybe look at a student family anonymous survey. Can you name a school staff person you can reach out to if you have questions or concerns? So that can be one of your questions on your survey. Have you built a trusting relationship with someone that works at the school and you feel comfortable talking to them? And then another one would be for families on a scale of 1 to 5, how connected do you feel to your child's teacher and other school staff? So if you just need to take some time to kind of check that pulse for your school and find out from students and families what the connection feels like. Maybe on your end, the connection feels really good. You feel like parents know how to access staff. You feel like students are really connected to the school staff. But doing an anonymous survey, if you don't already do one, can be really eye-opening to see exactly what people are saying they need or their concerns are around, who to contact. A lot of my friends during during COVID felt disconnected. And they were teacher friends and they were also parent friends. And so they felt disconnected from how do I reach these parents? And then parents felt very disconnected between, I'm not really good at this virtual learning stuff, and um, we're not navigating this in the same way, and I don't know how to reach out. Is text okay? Is it okay for me to call them on their home phone? Like, um, what are those expectations, and how can we really figure out this relationship and make sure that every student has that person? A few great places to start if you're not already doing some of these. And the first one here I just want to highlight is a really great activity that we heard about, but index cards with student names on tables. So imagine that you have the cafeteria tables full of index cards for students in the school, and you take all of the staff connected to the school. And so that's support staff, that can be your bus drivers and transportation staff, that can be your nutrition services staff, but everyone who's connected to the school takes a certain amount of index cards. And so this really, creates that smaller group feel because a lot of times our homeroom teachers have multiple classes during the day. And it's just good to have kids from different, grade levels. And if you have those index cards kind of spread out and they're very random, but making sure that every index card is picked up by someone connected to the school, then that individual will intentionally make a connection to those students. May require a little bit of work to get their information or find out where they can find them during the day, but really would help um, to build those relationships with students in the school, and I think it's a really, really cool idea. And I plan to share that with my son, who's going to be a first-year teacher. Homeroom teachers, of course, have always been a connect. It's one of the reasons we have homeroom. It's kind of like home base. So how can we make sure that homeroom teachers have the time in their schedule to really think about building relationships with their students? What fun things, what one-on-one time with each student can we build into our time together so that we can make that happen? Host trainings for all school staff on working with families to expand outside of teaching staff. So if we have PD that's really focused on teachers, are we including all staff in PD around family engagement? Are we making sure that they understand they're part of the school family and therefore should be in that relationship building with teaching staff? Host an honest conversation with a few family focus groups from diverse roles and grade levels. What should we start doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we continue doing? And a lot of times we get the same families to attend focus groups. And so really being aware and intentional in getting families who maybe you don't hear from on a regular basis. Maybe use an incentive, a gift card, a meal, something to bring them into the focus group, but really have that opportunity to ask, what are we doing that is really working? What are we doing that you feel like we really need to stop? And then are we doing anything right? Are we doing anything that you feel like really helps build that relationship with the school? Welcoming phone calls or even home visits and now Zoom visits with families. So getting to know a family a little bit more personal with that welcoming phone call or even visiting them at home if that's an option. And now really Zoom is kind of become an option for everybody. And so thinking about ways to have that personal one-on-one time with families. It's a lot different than your traditional parent and teacher conference because this is just really informal. Just reaching out, saying hi, introducing yourself, giving them a chance to introduce themselves and their student. And then, maybe they can drop a couple of tidbits about their student and that would really be helpful as you're thinking about ways to connect with them at school. We really also want to be rethinking back to school nights. There's a lot that people try to cram into just a couple of hours in the evening, and so many families are interested in meeting with the teacher, talking about their child's needs. And so this combination of welcoming phone calls, home visits, and back to school nights really needs to be connected with the purpose of how do we get that one-on-one time for the family. And so a really great example that I've heard about recently is kind of an all-day event where families kind of go in and they choose their time slot that they're going to come in, similar to a parent-teacher conference, but the back-to-school event happens all day. And I know that that's a lot of time at the front end of the school to think about fitting that in. But for working families and families with different schedules, thinking about how we can put together something that doesn't just get crammed into 2 hours in one evening and gives families options to make those appointments is a really great first step at rethinking back to school nights. And with anything that we do, as we're starting to build those relationships, we have to do those with families and teachers and not two. So what we think might be a great idea might not be a good idea in the eyes of our fellow teachers or may not be a good idea with families. So really that going back to that focus group, what do we start doing? What do we stop doing? And what do we continue doing?
Well, immediately after the home visit, I was then invited to a back to school night they were having in Stanton. They gave me a little flyer. I was like, well, we're having a back to school night. It's from this time to this time. Bring the kids, like a meet and greet the teachers and everyone that was going to be there. But one thing I can say about, Staten period is that it is constant communication, something I never had, something I completely enjoy. And it's not just negative communication, it's constant positive communication. I can be here at home, at work, anywhere, and one of my teachers would send me a text. Or I used to love it, Miss Lucas would send pictures, take pictures of them doing classwork, and she said, "You'll see, look how my Tanae, well, I call her Bird. The school calls her Bird, which I love because it's like a community. They adopted her nickname, so she would send me a text like, look at Bird, she's having a wonderful day today, and she's doing good." But in saying that, that allowed me to hear. It put a trust. I put a trust in Miss Lucas for doing that. So no matter what she said, how she had to say it, what the information is, it made it easier for me to receive it from her, because she had built this communication, this trust that I never had. So I tell people now, friendship. You know what I'm saying? We're not friends to talk every single day, but she's a person that I will always hold in a high regard. She will always have my respect. I really respect Miss Lucas, and I value her so much, because not just her, but all the teachers, but like she was the first one to really extend herself to me. And I would get the text, and then one day Tanae had a bad day, and she called me, and I was expecting to hear something good. Oh, she got good on her test, so she did read. And she was like, well, we had a bit of an issue today. I'm like, for real? What happened? Well, Tanae did X, Y, and Z, and I didn't get defensive. I didn't get, well, what did you do? Or what did I actually sat back and I listened, and I received the information, and I processed the information. For me, that was something different, because at that point in time, I felt it like, why am I getting mad? Because normally when you call me on the phone and you telling me something about my child did this, I'm naturally on the defense, like, well, what did you do to make my child do this? Or who was messing with her in class? Because my baby's a good baby. But in this time, it was different. And I don't know if it's because of the positive, feedback she gives me every day, the friendship we brought. It just made, when she was telling me what was going on, I took a breath, I stopped, and I listened. And then I was like, we actually got to a place where we worked together. I said, well, you know what, since she's having a bad day, can you put her on the phone? And I spoke with her on the phone, and I let her know that me and Miss Lucas are working together. We are a team, and if she asks you to do something, you need to treat it as if mommy is asking you to do something. So if she asks you to sit down, you need to sit down. And there was no more problems with Tanae.
So hopefully that video really resonated with you when it comes to this idea of building a relationship and getting that trust on the back end. And thinking about in the video when she says she wasn't defensive when the teacher called, because she does have that trusting relationship. So she sat back and listened and really took in what the teacher had to say instead of jumping to kind of a defense for her student. And so thinking about these strategies to engage with families, we come to these 4 core beliefs about families. And this comes directly from Beyond the Bake Sale, which was referenced at the beginning of the training as a great resource to your family engagement work. But the first one is, all families have dreams for their children and want the best for them. The second is, all families have the capacity to support their children's learning. The third one is, families and school staff are equal partners. And number 4, the responsibility for cultivating and sustaining partnerships among school, home, and community rests primarily with school staff, especially the school leaders. So just to kind of digest these 4 core beliefs, we're going to have you do a little assignment. And what I'm going to ask you to do is circle the belief that resonates with you the most. So what belief do you really hold on to? This is a belief that you hold and is a part of your work. And then I want you to think about a belief that maybe you're challenged by, and I want you to star that one. Then take some time to consider the impact that differences in race, class, and culture among families and teachers has on these beliefs. So if you're challenged by one of these beliefs, maybe why are you challenged by this belief? What have you seen in your work that maybe tells you something differently, or maybe you just need to really reflect on it. Maybe you haven't thought about it before. So this is a place in the training where we're going to ask you to stop the video and turn to your packet, and um, under the 4 core beliefs, we're going to ask you to circle and star, and then jot down some ideas that you have around this particular slide.